Let's go! LSU recruiting. Only 3 slots left, but there are more than 3 players that LSU still wants for the class of 2021. What is Ed Orgeron going to do? And a Louisiana underrated safety just got the LSU offer, but doesn't LSU already have 4 safeties committed? We're going to get to all of that today, plus one former 5-star defensive tackle that could transfer to LSU. What does that mean? Go on ahead, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and of course, we're so close to giving out that Patrick Queen card. Thanks to everyone that watched the live stream. And obviously, Ed Orgeron has a lot going on. So if you watch all 3 of our videos from earlier this week, you know all the stuff that LSU has to deal with. But let's actually talk about Ed Orgeron positively because, let's be honest, this guy is one of the greatest recruiters of all time. This is why you pay him $6+ million a year, because in the midst of LSU having a disastrously bad season, they have a top 5 nationally ranked recruiting class. They have more 4-star commitments than any other SEC school right now. And these final 3 slots are slated to go to hopefully 3 5-star commitments. This could end up being, in the midst of everything, the greatest LSU recruiting class of all time. If the dominoes flow, is that the right way? If the dominoes don't flow, if the dominoes fall in the way that LSU wants them to go, will Tristan Leigh, will Korey Foreman, will Maason Smith decide to come to LSU? But that's the problem, because it's not just those 3 guys. There's still Brian Thomas Jr., a top 100 wide receiver. Then Bryce Foster, then Savion Byrd. What if they decide that they want to come to LSU? But then on top of that, you offer Jardin Gilbert, a 4-star safety who legit plays his high school ball on campus at U High. So, yeah, what's going to happen? This is my what's going to happen dance. Is that a good dance? The question I'm getting a lot of right now, why would LSU offer another safety when 4 are already committed, okay? So we'll get to that in a moment, but for right now, let's discuss the elephant in the room. When it comes to recruiting, there's about to be some processing. That's the processing thing. It looks kind of weird. Now that this is becoming the norm everywhere, it's been the norm for quite some time, you have to know that at all times that any school can pull their offer away from you at any point in time, even if you're committed. But, to Ed Orgeron's credit, his job is to get the best players he possibly can to LSU. And, this is pretty ridiculous recruiting. Like, to do this, and yes, people will say, well, LSU is LSU. They always are going to recruit great kids. But remember, it was even before the season began that LSU was racking up commitments, especially those out of state, during the pandemic dead period. So that lets you know that this guy is really good at this. The Tristan Leigh thing isn't as warm as it was a few weeks ago when his mom was making appearances on local radio and Tristan Leigh was feeling great. He went to the Tiger Turnout Summit and on and on. But who's to say where he's going to go now? The world is his oyster. He's a 5-star offensive tackle. Every school wants him. Is he going to go to Oklahoma? Is he going to go to Ohio State? Is he going to go to Clemson? We don't know. But as of right now, I think most of you would agree that he is their number 1 target simply because LSU only has 1 offensive tackle committed in the class. That is a 4-star in Garrett Dellinger. And let's be honest, LSU's offensive line depth doesn't look the best. Their last recruiting class was only 3 offensive linemen. Only 1 of them was a 4-star. So LSU is looking to keep up with the Georgias and the Oklahomas of the world and, of course, the Alabamas when it comes to recruiting these 5-star offensive linemen. And if my memory serves me correct, I think the last 5-star offensive lineman was Maya Tuema. Was that it? Even then, their last good 5-star offensive tackle is obviously Lyle Collins. So you look at recent history, they haven't gotten an elite offensive tackle, and by elite, I mean a top 10 offensive tackle since Austin Deculus, and you see how well that's worked out for them. That doesn't happen to me. I've been told that Ed Orgeron's number one commitment, or his number one recruit, has been Maason Smith since day one. I still feel good. I still feel good about it, and if you get Maason Smith, you have the opportunity to get the nation's number one overall player in Korey Foreman. Now, let's get to Jardin Gilbert. He gets the LSU offer. What happens now? Well, we have to wait and see. This was an offer that he's wanted for quite some time. Shea Dixon's done some excellent reporting on this. A 4-star safety right there on LSU's campus. He would be the 5th safety committed to this class. I think the position is safety. I think we're going to see more safeties shift towards playing linebacker. I can easily see Khari Gee eventually being a linebacker. I could see Matthew Langlois playing linebacker, but he's also athletic enough to play a deep safety. Sage Ryan, I've always thought he was a nickel type of safety and defensive back. I think that's where LSU's going to try and play him. And I think Derrick Davis Jr., out of all the safeties, is going to get the most playing time in year one because he is just the best pure safety in this class. Adding Jardin Gilbert would be pretty nice. You have to remember this. As much as I love Jacoby Stevens, and as high as I was on Mo Hampton before the year began, this has been the worst safety play we've seen at LSU in quite some time. Now, how much is that them? How much of that is Bo Pelini? We don't know the answer to that question, but the tape is the tape. We've seen it. LSU needs help at safety, and yes, they have Jordan Tolles waiting in the wings, but we'll have to wait and see what happens going forward at that position. Our boy Jordan Burch, in his first year at South Carolina, just saw the coach that recruited him the heaviest get fired in Will Muschamp. Now, for those that don't remember Jordan Burch's recruitment, this was a guy who lived basically on South Carolina's college campus. His really good friend was Will Muschamp's son. So that played a big role in Jordan Burch going to South Carolina. But remember his recruitment. He thought long and hard about LSU. Well, now he's obviously having some thoughts about that. Keep in mind, the South Carolina defense has had players drop like flies since the Will Muschamp announcement. They had not one, but two. Joe Horn's son, J.C. Horn, and Mukamu, who is from Parkway High School. I hate it that he didn't end up going to LSU, but he was Terrace Marshall's teammate. He almost had a pick six against LSU a few weeks ago. But anyway, they both decide to go to the NFL draft. So, Jordan Burch is seeing people left and right leave. He doesn't know the future of South Carolina, but the coach that really wanted him to go to LSU is still at LSU, and that, of course, is Ed Orgeron. Now, remember, if there is anything to be said about Ed Orgeron, is that he loves him some defensive tackles, and Jordan Burch is a former 5-star talent. So, obviously, I would be shocked if LSU doesn't look into it. For those that are saying, well, I don't want Jordan Burch to count against a 25 scholarship limit, there's no telling what's actually going to happen with any of that. So, we'll have to wait and see. Alrighty, subscribers, shut up! Starting off with Carter the Power Loves Alabama. My burner has just been revealed. Now, I appreciate it. There's also apparently a Carter the Power Loves Auburn account. That's kind of weird. I don't love any of the schools. I will say both campuses are pretty. Anyway, Ed, not a great coach, but a great recruiter. And this is a response video, or a response comment to my video yesterday, talking about LSU's lack of adjustments at halftime, which has been a problem this year, and it was also a problem last year on the road. Now, let's be honest. Games are weird. Anything can happen. But my big point from yesterday's video, and if you want to go back and watch it, you can. Pretty much every decent, experienced quarterback has lit LSU up in the second half. Now, why is that important? Well, if you give up 21 points in the second half, that is essentially, on average, you giving up 42 points over the course of a game. But as many of you know, giving up 21 in the second half is worse than giving up 21 in the first half because, the second half is the most important half. You got to finish strong, right? So, yeah, that's a big problem right now at LSU. But to say that Ed Orgeron's not a great coach, I think that's a little too broad because recruiting is part of coaching. Now, if you're going to say, well, Ed Orgeron is not a great in-game coach, I could see that being a fair assessment. Not only the adjustments, Ed Orgeron's timeout usage has not always been the best. So, yeah, I think that's fair, but that's not his job at LSU. He lets his coaches coach, and he makes all the big decisions over the course of the game. It's up in the air with how he's done with those, so we'll have to see what he does going forward. Now, I will say, having a double bye going into this Arkansas game, where they had a late trip back from Florida just to come back home and play an 11 a.m. kickoff, you are getting as big of a rest advantage you possibly can have. And LSU started preparing for Arkansas early last week. So yeah, live chat was so much fun yesterday, guys. Thank you so much for all the support, the donations, and all that good stuff. Thank you. Don't forget our next live chat after the game on Saturday. You know it, baby. Let's go. It's Power Hour LSU. Boom! Boom, boom, boom. Oh, my girlfriend called me. I better call her back. Because we are having popcorn shrimp tonight.